Hey, good evening. Welcome to Ask Anything with Tanya York. We're already off to a great and fun start. I'm excited for tonight.
That's great.
Tanya, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. I'm excited and
Yeah, we are
nervous.
too. And I think everybody else is because we have a ton of questions and lots of things to ask and pick your
Okay.
brain for your wisdom and some humor and
Okay.
what else comes.
If Michael submit a question, if he submitted one, or if he calls in, ignore him. I'm just
Ignore.
saying.
All right,
Ignore Michael.
I'm listening.
Just saying.
What about some other family members?
Other family members as well.
Yeah, we're
Ignore
going to
all
ask
my
some
family.
family questions for
Right.
sure.
Okay.
Hey, well, I'm excited that you've joined in tonight. We want to get right to questions with Tanya York. She is the wife of our senior pastor, Dr. Herschel York. Let's start with we had several questions about being a pastor's wife.
Okay.
And that is not who you are, but it's a part of who you
Exactly.
are. And I know it's something that you teach on at the seminary, and you've been able to equip a lot of people. This first question is from Rachel Dever. She asks, "What's the best part and the hardest part of being a pastor's wife?"
Okay. Best part about it and hardest. It's actually one and the same. It's having so many, the best part is having so many people who love you and you love. Your family just grows bigger and bigger. And the hardest part is having so many people who love you and you love, and you don't get to be with all of those people. Because as your family grows,
Mm-hmm.
then you still have the limited amount of time and opportunity. And so that's a real challenge personally for me to be able to interact with all those loves.
Yeah.
So,
No, that makes sense. This next question is from Rachel Howe. She asks, "What you think is the most important thing you've learned as a pastor's wife?"
that's a great question. That one's pretty easy in the sense of being a pastor's wife on some level does not make you have more Christian capability and more Christian responsibility than anybody. And it's as hard and as disciplined a thing for a pastor's wife to be a consistent, faithful, passionate Christian as it is for anybody. And so it doesn't alleviate challenges to that. And I think I thought there might be, because not growing up in a real Christian worldview and really knowing Pastor Holmes stuff kind of
Mm-hmm.
things, I sort of thought that there came with that, I say office, you know what I mean, but
Yeah.
position, extra power, extra sensory powers. And it really doesn't. It's as hard a work, I think, to exhibit fruits of the Spirit as it is for anybody else. And
Yeah.
and so I sort of had to flesh all that out. What true expectations were, godly expectations, and live those. And the other things sort of make peace with themselves. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. This is a question from Erica, who is a pastor's wife. Is
Okay.
married to a youth pastor. She asked, "How do you balance being a wife and a mother and a ministry wife? Specifically, how does she remain involved with her husband's ministry while still remaining faithful and caring for her young, 3 and under, really young children?"
Uh-huh. Um, I think a little differently than some people thought of that. When Herschel and I started out in ministry, he was a associate pastor of music and an associate pastor of youth, and we did that for 7 years, and we had 2 boys during that time. And I don't know that I knew any different other than they just become part of my ministry. My children do. And there's going to be a lot of plates that I'm spinning and juggling all at once. And to say balance, I don't know that you ever really balance
Mm-hmm.
it. You manage it for each different season in different ways. It's like there's sometimes I'm going to have to give a little more attention to my family, home life boys, and other times ministry's going to call on me to give more attention than it is, and it's going to sort of take from that venue of home, that constancy of day in day out stuff that you need to do in home life. But the great thing about that is, man, in ministry, especially like I think youth ministry falls into this category, you have a whole host of people to come along beside you
Yeah.
that help you harness and live family life and ministry life well. And you've got to include those people in your life. They've got to become like family. It's like even when we moved away, and Herschel, there was a season where he was full-time student and full-time youth minister. And then we had the two young boys, and we were janitors even, I think, during a season of that time too, that it was hard juggling all those things, except for the fact that we didn't have family close to help us balance corralling kids and ministry demands and all that. But we had church members that invited us, and we invited in to be family. And we took advantage, and I meant in a good way, of
Yeah.
that. And the Lord gave us fathers and mothers and sisters and brothers and houses and lands.
Yeah.
And so it's never been anything where I feel like it's all out of whack to me. It's challenging, but don't you think everybody's life is?
Yeah, it's what you're answering this question. It's not, and it's certainly true for being a pastor and pastor's wife.
Yeah.
But that's true. The balance of
Everybody,
whatever it is you're
Yeah,
invested in.
If your dad does, state work,
Yeah.
he's still 8 to 5, and or whatever
Yeah.
it's still everybody's
Yeah,
life.
there's different
So
seasons.
yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, I
So,
thought of that. We have church members right now on frontline medical,
That's
healthcare
cool.
workers, government workers.
Right.
And you literally see them on TV. We know that they're not running
Right.
normal hours.
Heck no.
And that's a season where they're having to step up. And that's also a season where we see our church, like you're saying, coming around their family because
comes
they
around.
recognize
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And so, making sure you utilize those people that the Lord plants. They're gifts in your life.
Yeah.
And
We certainly, that's been our experience. When student ministry, we had people that watch our kids every week so that Catherine could be here with our students kid-free.
Yeah, and you especially know this, with Catherine having to do a change up with her dad's health situation, her family and everything, and special nuances to juggling changed in your life. And so, like, if you had the boys and yet you still had responsibility,
Yeah, there were people,
you couldn't,
thankfully, ready
you had
to
to
help.
just operate in a heartbeat
Yeah.
on calling like you're going to call your mom or your sister. I need you to come here and immediately do this. And
Yep.
the Lord gives them to you.
Yep.
A lot of people don't take them.
That's true. That's good. And the last one related to being a pastor's wife. I think this is going to be helpful for all of us. What are some ways that we as church members can encourage our pastors' wives?
Wow. It's strange because I feel so encouraged. And so let me just try and think of how I feel encouraged. People are regular and consistent at telling me, first treating me like a friend. They treat me like a friend. They don't treat me like an outsider or weird. They do this weird like royalty dance. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I appreciate that they see me with skin on as a normal person. They know that there's like some special challenges that face my life, that face ministry life, that are a little difficult, and so they try to recognize and do that, and they feed us snacks. And
Food. That's the answer to every
no,
encouragement.
they are just they're just mindful of us. They're you'll hear me use that word a lot, but they're mindful of our ministers, pastors. The fact that they I think our congregations out there, they're mindful that there's a family involved here, and it's not just you. It's a whole group, and people love on your kids. And the way they do that to me is they love on all of ours.
Yeah.
They don't separate out pecking orders. They love all y'all, and I like that. So.
For sure. I want to shift to talking a little about your personal devotion life, your time in the Word and prayer.
Okay.
This question comes from Hannah Parrish. How do you structure your time in the Word?
My time in the Word. All right, structure is a word I don't use with my time in the Word. I will say what I do most consistently is it's more in the morning. I wake up And
Are you a morning person?
I'm not. No. What do you mean by like morning? Do I get up early?
I know you don't get up too
I
early.
don't get up too early.
Someone else in your house does.
Somebody else does, yeah. And they're like, like
Yeah.
asking
Those
me
emails start
questions
coming.
all like early in the morning. But no, I sort of like slowly move into it. But the way I operate best is I'd follow, even with my own life, the Deuteronomy 6 concept of when I rise, when I lay down, when I walk, when I sit. And so I have pockets of all over my house and in my car of opportunities to sort of take stuff in of the Lord or write like a journal something down or a prayer request. And I don't just like get up in the morning and just do private devotional time and read through a chapter and like that. I do make that part of my life sometimes. Like I will read a proverb, whatever, consistent with like a Proverbs 14 on the 14th. I do Psalms. I do read through books of the Bible. I like just sort of chewing on them over and over again in different translations. I really like that. I like doing a chronological one. But that may fall at a different time in the day. It's like I make it part of my day. It's just I'm not going to wake up. And I'll tell you why I started something where I would do it as soon as I woke up in the morning and make that my first thing. And I could not consistently focus on that without it being something that I checked off my to-do list.
Right.
It was like, well, I read my Bible today. Well, was I disciplined? Yes. Was I devotional? No. And I noticed that's not what I'm going for. It became sort of pharisaical to
Right.
me, that I just check it off of here's what I've done list. So I'll stick it in different places. I've got a Bible, and right, how many Bibles everybody has, and you can imagine my household how many Bibles we have. And so there's one literally.
Do you smell your Bibles
I do. Dude, this Bible smells great.
I never thought of the smell of a Bible until Dr. York was like, "This one's a good one."
Yeah.
Like, good
So
for what?
I remember when I got my first smell Bible, and it was.
There's something to it. It's like
I'm
I've got
telling you,
a real
yeah.
Bible
When you
here.
open it up, and the pages make a difference. Like for years, I just did. I know that he probably hates that I'm using it, but for years, like I just did one of those hardback, like regular books, Bibles and then I had a fancy cover on it, a leather cover. But those just wear out so badly,
Right.
and I can just say, I've grown to appreciate the smell of a good Bible now. So
Yeah.
he's broadened my horizons like that. I like it.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Do you use any kind of system in organizing prayer requests?
Yes, and I'll tell you who helped me do that is KK, Kathy Casey. I watched how she would. She one time showed me in journals that she keeps. And journaling is not a strength of mine. It's something that I do to sort of record things that I need to consistently pray for, and as I pray for them, and it records for me things I think I couldn't possibly forget, but will have forgotten, like prayer requests that the Lord comes back and answers. Yeah. You always want to come back and go, wow, Lord, you are so faithful and good. And I always intend to do that, but if I don't have it written down, I don't. What Kathy did was like she would just normally write out, like, May 6th, 2020, and then she would just write down people's names and maybe a little note beside it. And then she would write down some scriptures and maybe even pray out that scripture. So that's probably the most consistent way that I do it. I don't have my purse with me, but it's just a little paperback, cheap little notebook thing that if I don't write it down, I forget it. So people at church are all the time saying to me, will you pray? I need you to pray for this for me. And I have intentions to make sure I do it.
Yeah.
But if I don't write it down, and so most of the people who've asked me to do that, they'll know. I will say to them, hang on, let me get a pen, write this down. And I'll write it down. And I usually write it down. If I don't have that little notebook handy, I can't dig it out of the bottom of my endless purse, I'll write it on something. and then
Yeah.
transfer it into
Yeah.
that. So I can follow back up with that person and with the Lord of gratitude. It's gratitude.
What are your favorite resources besides your husband
hmm
when to use when you're studying the Bible?
When I'm studying my Bible, he has been really incredible resource in the fact that he's taught me like a system to my study. So I basically read that text over and over and over again in a Bible that does not have footnotes because I am so weak at reading somebody else's opinions and comments that if it's there, I'm going to jump right down to it. So not saying that's bad, it just can't be my.
There's a place for
There's
it.
a place for it. I got to sort of. So I'll read. Like when I taught through Mark, I read through Mark, and it's short, so you can read through it a bunch. And so I read through it a whole bunch, and then I ask, like I know I asked Chris, hey, what's a good Mark source that you use? And he suggested some things to me, and I never say his name. Curavilla, is that how you say his name?
I think it's Curuvula.
Curivula, whatever. How you say it?
Curuvula.
It's great. It's a great guy.
Yeah.
But so I think Chris was the one who told me. So I ordered that book. By the way, it was a costly paperback book. I'll just say. I remembered like
Expensive taste, that guy.
really, really costly paperback book. But it's funny. So I turned to the first pages of it, and the word pericope. I did not know this word. I'd never just, I'm not college
Well, would you?
educated.
Yeah, I mean,
oh,
it's
so
not
do
like,
you know that?
I would do, but I went to seminary,
All right.
so I mean,
so,
why would,
pericope, and he uses it like 100 times in the
Yeah.
first chapter. It's like you got to know what a pericope is. So it's funny. I remembered then having to launch off and study. What's pericope? What's that about? And so I have to, my sources I like to ask people's sources, and I like getting stuff that's super easy. Like I'll even use like children's things. I like using the like New Living Translation. I will even is it New Living Translation? Yeah, I'll do that. Chronological Bible. I'll use different versions, and I'll study through that. I like an archaeological Bible, so it gives me like I want to know where everything is in that. And so those are the things I use. And then I try not and get threatened and intimidated by those sources.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That as I read them, there are some things I can't wrap my brain around. It's like I can't even go there. And these people, like some of these pages, they just throw out, German.
Yes.
And I was like, don't get that. Don't plan to get that. I just turned the page.
Can be faithful without it.
Yeah,
It's
can be.
fine.
That's right. That's right. And so I try to stretch myself to study deeper things that don't come easy to me, but I don't ever. I have to always go back and study stuff that I already know and refamiliarize myself with because I did not grow up with Bible knowledge. And so, like even something as simple as Israel and Judah split, getting all that down I have to restudy history every time I study in the Old Testament, sort of get all that laid out. So it's a long process, but I like it.
is.
I like it.
They can be. I'm glad you kind of hit that.
Uh-huh.
Studying the Bible can, especially when you begin to. I mean, the Bible itself, you can one spend a lot of time in. And
Exactly.
but you can get lost in it.
Absolutely.
So resources are helpful, but they can also almost make you intimidated to actually spend time on the Word, or
Right.
they could just draw you out of the Bible and just.
That's right,
into a
because I have to
resource.
go, what if I didn't have these
Yeah.
sources? Because, in the U.S., everything's in English. We have so much, and if it's from another language, somebody's translated it, so we've got all of that to you. But, like I look at different people who don't have, now they're getting a whole lot more translations, but people who don't have any of those same resources, and they're able to love the Word and the Lord and be faithful and consistent to obey it as easily as anybody.
Yeah.
So
Good. You mentioned you taught through Mark
Mm-hmm.
within, I don't know, the last year and a half here
Yeah, I
at
think so.
Buck Run Adult Discipleship. What's your process for preparing to teach? You teach here, you teach at conferences, you
Mm-hmm.
teach at other places. What's that process look like of how figuring out what you're going to
Okay,
teach?
let's see.
All the
How I figured out how to teach, about teaching Mark. I just had my ears open to just hearing different things, and something just like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And it was Elise Garrett would ride with me to teach. I would teach at Seminary Wives on Thursday night, and Elise would ride over with me. And she made this statement. She said, Mark doesn't get much love. And I said, like, Mark, it's just like the Gospel of Mark. He just didn't get much love. And, like, have you noticed, have you ever thought about? So she started talking about all the other Gospels. And sure enough, there's like just tons of stuff out there for all the other Gospel writers. And Mark just seemed to not have that much. And so I just thought, well, that's interesting. Wonder why that is. And so I began to read Mark a little bit then. And so that was on my radar because of
hmm
Elise. And then Chris asked me to teach a cycle, and then he told me the length of the cycle. And so then I started looking at what would be a reasonable book of the Bible that you could break down in either 6 weeks or 12 weeks, whichever one it came out to be. And that's so then I make my gauge of what would do. I also look at what you guys have been teaching, what Herschel's teaching, um, what what's sort of piquing my interest for that. If it's something like where I'm speaking at something, a lot of times people give you a theme for the women do this
hmm
a lot. I'm not really sure that I love that. I'll be honest with you, but they'll get a theme for a retreat or a
Yeah.
conference, and then they'll go, "Here's our theme. Do something with
With
that."
that, yeah.
And that's a little challenging because then, you know, what you find is they've already got their idea of what they mean
hmm
for you to do with that theme. And
Yeah.
so, I have to sort of figure out that dance, and I talk with them. So a lot of that is just, then I say to them, all right, here's what I'm studying. A lot of times, though, too, people will say, I'm going to leave that open to you. And I'll say, here's what's just really been a passion in my heart recently. Something's been on, I've been thinking about. I, I will teach the same thing, but I will tell you, and Herschel he always fusses at me about, fusses is too strong a word. He always but I will restudy it as if I've never taught it,
hmm
just because I'm pretty sure when I study something that I don't get it all right. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And so I'll I will go back and restudy it and then learn what I didn't do right
Yeah.
and then make that tweak.
Good. Let's talk a little about marriage, parenting.
Okay.
What's the best and hardest part of being married to Herschel?
Mm, the best and hardest part. He is fun. That's the best part. He's fun to be married to, and that's a big deal. To be enjoyable to be married to, and you got to make that choice to be fun. And I think there was an intensity that we had at one season in life where that wasn't something that he aspired to do. And once I said, "You're not fun to live with," kind of deal, and it was early on in marriage. It was while he was going to UK even. And he's like, "You don't think I'm fun? Yeah, you're not fun." And he said, "Okay, I'm going to be fun from now on." and and he changed that.
Yeah.
And he's a fun guy to be married to. So that's the easy part. The challenging part is there is no off switch for him. And he, when, like, if we're on vacation, there's an off switch.
Yep.
But if we're in, he 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 goes hard and long, and he knows how to relax when it's part of, like, we're on vacation.
hmm
He does that great, but he works hard, and part of that is it keeps our life super super busy. He doesn't like to say no to certain things. Y'all know. Y'all know. And sometimes the hard part will be, and he knows this, and it's stretch, and I want to be stretched in the ways I need to be stretched in that, and I also want to uh, guard those things and correct them if we're not doing it right in
Right.
our home, in the dynamic of that. And like, he looks at some on the calendar and he'll say, well, we don't have anything on that day. And I go, yeah, but we have something on 4 days before it and 4 days after it.
Hmm.
So I need that day.
Yeah, we need that day.
Yeah. So that's the challenging part with him.
Yeah.
But he
It's a byproduct of one of the best things about him.
that's exactly right.
Um,
That's exactly right.
like since coming here, I'm seeing like he has a massive platform,
Mhm.
and yet he could just ignore certain levels of speaking engagements, but his
You're
heart for
you're
to
exactly
go
right.
preach on a Tuesday night 4 hours away to 40 people
That's exactly right.
is one of the
He,
best things about him.
uh,
Yet that leads to
that's exactly right. Yeah.
some of what you're
And
speaking
so
to.
so what I've learned to do is, if at all possible, I'll do a ride along,
Hmm.
and and I've learned to go, that is who he is, and I do admire and honor that trait about him, and I wouldn't want it to be different on that level,
Yeah.
because it's a trade-off.
Yeah, that's a big part of marriage. I mean,
It
you're
is.
like,
It's exact. And so it's like, all right, do you really want him to not care
yeah,
about that kind of thing? No, I don't want that. So what can you adapt and adjust and accommodate? And I go, I can ride along. And if I have to study or prepare for something, I can take my computer. He's got that little MiFi
hmm,
thing. Most places I can pick it up, or I can write with a notepad and a pen
yeah,
and make it happen. So,
it's good.
so.
Kathy Paget asked, who are a couple people that serve as the greatest influencers in your marriage?
Okay, that's it. Here. It's a type of person, a type of couple, and I would say they're people who collaborate together. That anybody that I have witnessed that are team, like Team Reeson, Team, you know, York, that is very attractive to me, to see that you get a couple who work, they're co-laborers together in ministry and at home. They do it all. They have each other back in that. And I would say Heather and Stephen Olford. You couldn't say Stephen Olford without saying Heather Olford. I mean, just watching them up close. And she was a very, very strong woman, and incredibly humble and meek. And watching that dynamic with a very, very strong, opinionated, fiery man, and yet watching it was a beautiful peer relationship. Same, I think Joyce and Adrienne Rogers were that. I love watching. She was incredibly active in her church, and she didn't like make a separate safe zone. And I also like that those women were strong enough to sort of go toe to toe with their husbands, and encourage them and honor them, and yet lovingly correct them. They're sharpening each other, and it is like a two-sided thing. So, but then you don't have to be in ministry, obviously, to do that. And there are people that I like looking at the way they're teamed together, and you're just like, again, Kathy and Bobby Casey,
Hmm.
Bruce and Jeannie McCutcheon. You look at different people that were always they're always grouped up together, and you just see one, you see the other one, and that's always been really a neat thing to me.
Yeah. I was going to ask this question at the end, but you pronounced the word humble.
Humble.
Yeah. Is
It's my
that how you,
husband
yeah.
taught me that.
So
Yeah.
I know that's a byproduct of your marriage.
Right. Exactly.
We've had that
That's right.
conversation. That's funny. How do you balance having two little boys? This is obviously a question from a mom. How do you balance having two little boys with being a godly wife? The guilt on both sides of motherhood and wife is heavy.
All right. Well, so it's been a long time since I had little boys, obviously. And I would say that I was blessed to not have looming over me social media.
Hmm.
And it's it's a blessing and a curse. And it, trying to keep up with what everybody's doing. There was no way to keep up, to compare yourself as easily as it is trying to keep up and compare yourself now.
Yeah.
And then you got that awesome challenge of trying to create a persona that you want everybody to thumbs up you for. And so I think I think our culture today is made for moms, wives. We Because it's so public now. It's like everybody's always reading our newspaper life, and we've opened that up, and I don't know how to close that. But I would say again, balancing it. You don't balance it. You're spinning plates all the time between being a good wife, being a good mom, being a good sister, a good aunt. You got all
Yeah.
these things
Lots
that
of
you're trying.
titles start
Yeah,
racking
yeah.
up.
So
Yeah.
you're spinning all those plates. Those are just two plates. So you're literally spinning all these plates, and every once in a while, one of them's going to crash, and you don't freak out, and you pick up a clean plate and you start it spinning again, and
Yeah.
you just, you don't lose yourself in trying to spin those plates. But it's just life's busy, and for people to act like it's not going to always be a challenge to balance life. It's always going to be a challenge. It's no less challenging to balance my life now as an almost 60-year-old woman as it was. It's different balancing plates, but to think that you're ever going to get it and you're going to be able to balance them, you're just not. You're just going to always be spinning plates. And I have a line that says, I have all eternity to rest up. I'm not
Hmm.
going to be exhausted in eternity.
Yeah.
So I am going to wear myself out here. That's just part of life. It's gonna take hard work, and
Yeah.
you're gonna get exhausted. You're gonna fall into bed tired from having served.
Yeah, that's a good word for us. Casey Atha asked a great question. She asked, "What's the balance between letting your children think highly of their parents, but still sharing the parents' weakness and sin and dependency in the Lord?"
Hmm. Um, I would. That is a great question. The balance is I think I think there's something in your heart that really knows that
Hmm.
balance, and so you've got to balance your pride in it and the teachability of it. So is it something that you can use as a teachable moment for your child to learn, to grow in, to understand those concepts that Casey's mentioned there, which are great. And, like I remember like when I was young and a young mom, and I did the foolish counting thing, where you go, bring me that or do this to
Hmm.
your child, and they don't, and you go, one, two, and then by three they've done it.
Hmm.
So what you're doing is you're training them. Delayed
Yeah.
obedience is still going to pass, and that's not a biblical concept.
Two and a half, two and three
That's
quarters.
right. It's like how long do you get to count? And so I don't know exactly what made me. I don't know if somebody said something that called me on it. I don't know the corrective measure that happened to get me there, but I remembered going, I'm not doing that counting thing anymore.
Mm.
And I remembered the boys had gotten old enough to understand the counting concept, and that counting actually was what I was doing, and that was giving them delayed, obedience teaching. And I remembered pulling them both in and go, look, I used to count. That is not a godly concept and principle, and I blew it. And so, first of all, forgive me for training you in the wrong way, but we're about to do it different and right. And so from now on, Mom has grown and learned, and we're not counting. And then I did explained out that. So as your kids get older, do that. I don't think your kids, like sometimes people ask me the question like, well, how much should you reveal to your teenage children with the things? I don't really think teenagers want to know all your,
No.
I don't, I don't, there's just something it's like you don't want to see your parents walk around in their underwear. You know, is that
Yep.
tacky saying that?
No,
Okay. Um,
not at Buck Run.
okay.
Maybe probably somewhere.
Right.
Your next speaking
So,
engagement, you probably should.
like, yeah. So I just don't think you need to give details about like that kind of stuff to your kids. There's enough examples out there that you can utilize. I'm not saying to lie if they ask you
Yeah, and
questions.
to apologize when you should.
That's
Like,
right, all
yeah.
that kind of stuff. But um, you know, authority is living out in realness and humbleness and asking forgiveness, all those things. And so your kids need to see all that. And you know,
Dana Black asked specifically about just raising sons. If you had any wisdom that you'd impart there, and then she's heard Dr. York say that there came a time that the boys, when they were growing up, didn't want to be taught by you. Do you remember kind of what age that was, and
yeah.
how did you handle those
Okay,
years?
about 10 years, right around 10 years old or something like that. And I think you like you even look at school age kids, they start beginning, I don't have girls, so I wouldn't know if girls even do that, but I know they get like a know-it-allness about them and they lose their teachability and entreatability and all that. And boys, I think definitely do that. They push their mom away because they're trying to become men and they don't want you to mother them. And I think it messes up, like you do want them to grow into men, and you got to sort of let them man up and live in not a safe zone of mom love anymore, and there is a different way that a dad will parent and a mom will parent that I think a dad is very coaching like, and I think they need that new. And coaches can be harsh, still loving, and they care
Yep.
about you and they care about your career and they care about your
Yeah.
future. A good coach, but a mom's going to do it differently. It's like, well, don't say those harsh things to them, harsh, mean, be tender. And a dad can say it a little tougher, and they got to sort of hear that kind of thing, because that's life, that's part of life. So I think that not be, get over your woundedness and offendedness that your boys don't want you mothering them like that, and don't take it personally. It's the shaping of a man. It's him turning into a soldier for Christ, is I guess one way you could look at it. But give them the heart of their dad, honor and respect them the way that you relate to their father as your husband, and their father is crucial. You're a team, but you do sort of move it into. It really matters the way they see male servant leadership, and so it's important to allow that to take place. That sort of transformation in the home, moving from mom caring for them and throwing special birthdays, and all those neat little things moms need to do, and show a motherly love to what a different heart looks like. And you guys sort of let that role fall naturally.
Yeah. Good. Jennifer Whitaker asked, "What's a characteristic you got from your mom
Jenny.
and dad that has served you well in ministry?"
Jenny Pooh is my niece, and I adore that girl.
Some family questions are permissible.
Okay, she's acceptable. But okay, from my mom, this is pretty easy. It's actually easy for both of them. My mom loved life. She loved people. Um, she did not take herself seriously. She could laugh at herself. She could do crazy things, and it did not bother her or make her. She wasn't intimidated to be comfortable in her funness and silliness. And my mom just sort of embraced the moment, and she could make people laugh and liked to make people laugh. She liked to be a fun lady. So that would be my mom, just. And my dad is got a strong work ethic. My dad was not a lazy man, and he had no place for laziness. And so laziness was not on his radar, and so laziness was not going to be on mine either. by his design. And so I think we were taught by him, work hard, and if something needs to be done, don't look for somebody to do it, just do it.
Yeah.
If you see something needs to be done, then just do that.
Yeah. Billy Butcher asked, what would you say has been most helpful with staying consistent in being a disciplined woman? You got any practical actions or practices that keep you motivated long term?
Okay, yeah, great. Okay, this one would be if I fall off the concept of if you fall off the horse, get back up on it. So, like if you've lost, the moment you recognize, hey, I'm not consistent in my prayer life anymore, my devotional, my read my Bible, whatever it is, filling like the blanks, that you don't go, well, starting Monday, I've got a plan in place. You start right then, whatever it is. And if you can just try to train yourself to be repentant, and repentant doesn't just mean I'm sorry that happened, it's really a change of the course of your step. You start walking right. And so that's sort of my best operating method is this the moment I go, oh man, I've just not been praying like I should. I really need, instead of going, I really need to pray, I go, oh, I haven't been praying, oh Father, and I'll just launch then. Or if I go, I haven't been reading my Bible, I go, well, just whatever you're doing is not more important than that. Even if I'm cooking dinner or whatever it is, it's like there is nothing more important than that. So stop as soon as you fall off your horse, get right back up on. And then, let's see, the other one would be to be consistent in it. I know I'm fearful of what I'm like and the what I portray. No one comes out what's inside of me when I'm not consistent with the Lord. That shows up in my life. So if I'm not walking consistently, either in praying or reading my Bible or just seeking to serve other, whatever, any spiritual discipline you put out there, I am convinced everybody else notices it. And I don't, I'm just prideful enough that I don't want people to notice those things in me. And so the only way to not be those things is to go, like if I start getting critical and I'm kind of griping about, somebody, or somebody gets on my nerves and I voice it, the Lord's really gracious to have somebody in my life that will, like one time I remember I was criticizing somebody. I was like, yeah, they just made my life really hard, blah, 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 and I fill in the blank. And one of my daughters-in-law said to me, yeah, that just sounds harsh. I was like, dang, just so aggravating. And so after my initial wounding, I was like, yeah, because that is harsh and that's critical. And then I could trace it back, not to that person, but my lack of that. And so I'm sure we all have these signs that go, I'm not walking with the Lord like I ought to walk, and it shows. So I don't want that.
Thanks for answering that one. We'll do a quick twinkling of an eye round.
Okay.
This time is going
Let's do
quickly
it. Okay.
with you.
All right.
What did you want to be or do if you had not met and married Herschel?
Okay, knowing what I know now, I don't know what
Right.
obviously don't know, I wouldn't have chosen this, but knowing what I know now, being who I am now, I love archaeological digs. I love studying that kind of stuff. I like seeing what's exposed. Brother Ken bought me a subscription to Archaeology Today, and he's probably the only one at the time who really had that insight into that kind of stuff being interesting to me. And the fact that he picked up on it was amazing to me. And then he bought me an archaeological study Bible. Is that cool? But so I would
cool.
like to do.
I've always heard he's a great gift giver.
It's
he's just the
phenomenal.
best one.
It's phenomenal. And so every time we go to Israel, I really get just fixated on the places that are camped out, that these guys are in there doing that tedious labor and unfolding things from civilizations past. It's fascinating to me.
Great.
And I can do monotonous hard work.
Yeah.
So
Paul Brown wanted us to ask if you still watch wrestling.
Oh, yeah, okay, here's the truth. I watch my son and my grandson watch wrestling. So technically, no, I don't watch wrestling.
To keep up with it.
But I keep up with it. Like, I know The Undertaker's back. So,
If you say so.
okay. I am aware that The Undertaker came back from like 1984 or some crazy. I mean, like, he's like old. And like, I recognize the old wrestler guys like, Rowdy Roddy Piper and Bret Hart. Do you know any of these wrestler
do.
guys? Okay. So I
You a
followed.
Jerry Lawler fan?
Yeah.
All right, Memphis.
Randy Savage. Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
that's right. So, Mr. Perfect. I followed it enough to be a boy mom and sort of engage in that world with them. And
Yeah, because you do kind of have to tinker in
you do.
those
You have
to
to think
find
so.
the-
Yeah. So I
that's true of
made.
any,
That's
regardless of
right.
your
So
child
it's like
is.
our interaction
Yeah.
together of how to do that. So
That's
so technically, no, I don't still watch it, but I am familiar, especially because my grandson watches
Yeah.
it. So I re-entered the world.
Who wins in a Nerf battle, you or Dr. York?
Oh, me, because I like to win and I hate to lose. So, and it matters too much to me and not enough to him, I
Yeah.
think.
When are we going to have a church-wide watching of viewing of this battle? That'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be
This feels like a
no,
good place
because
for it.
then you'd see my sinful tendencies,
Yeah.
and I'd.
So you're more
prefer-
competitive than he is?
We're both pretty competitive, but I'd say, yeah, probably. Like, it matters when. This is funny. A lot of people don't understand this. Like, if I play any word game like Scrabble, Boggle, anything like that, I will win because I care so much. And so I strategize greatly. So I don't want to just win. I want to like annihilate kind of thing. I know that's
A lot of us have been watching a documentary every Sunday night on Michael Jordan, and that's the tendency they keep highlighting. It's not good enough to win.
Yes.
You have to destroy people.
That's it. Okay, so
you and Jordan.
yeah, so it's funny, but like it's hilarious to me. Like, people will go, "I bet you never do word games." Like, never. I wouldn't play Scrabble with Dr. York. How does it feel to always lose?
Huh.
I was like,
Yeah,
well,
that's offensive.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just the staff Christmas party, the games. All of us are
All of us are
way
very
too
competitive. Yeah,
competitive.
blood actually has shown up in
Literally,
a couple of them.
yeah.
Literally.
That's good.
Mel Crisper, right there. Okay. Who are gentle as
Yes.
doves,
Yep.
but competitive.
Until a game comes out.
Right.
Faith Sebastian asks, besides Jesus, who's your favorite Bible character?
Favorite Bible character? Oh man, that's hard pressed to say. I really like. I like James a lot. I just have to go with, how could you not love the Apostle Paul?
Yeah.
I mean, because his before and after picture is so striking.
Yep.
And so I love we all like Cinderella stories, and Christian Cinderella's the best, So like, he was,
I thought of it
who
that way.
was before
Yeah.
and who he is afterward is so radically beautiful and different, and just shows the grace of God and how no one is not reachable. So,
Yeah.
Paul.
Okay. And then John York asked, if someone were to make a movie about your life, who would you want to play you? And what about Pastor
Me.
Herschel?
I want to play
That would be my own.
I want to play me. And I'd want Herschel to play Herschel.
There, makes sense.
Yeah, but no, who I'd want to play Herschel was I'd probably pick out some hunky guy. I don't know.
Denzel.
Yeah, Denzel Washington. I'm thinking about. I just don't know. That's a great question.
It's a good question.
I'm gonna have to think on that one.
Yeah.
It would be Herschel would probably prefer somebody like Paul Newman or Robert Redford, but they're small of stature men.
Yeah.
And so I'd want to.
That's not him.
That's not him. I'd need a more commanding presence of a guy than that.
And then last, Dina Womack asked, just for your thoughts on the second smallest verse in the Bible, remember Lot's wife.
Okay. That's a really pretty interesting text. Herschel preached that he's preached that because that's in Luke. So let's go back. Luke's addressing in that passage. Remember, they're saying the disciples are saying, you know, teach us how to have faith, kind of deal. And so he's pointing them toward that whole time about faith looks forward, because he's got, when he talks about like the days, so it is in the days of Noah, so it is in the days of Lot. When he says that, he's talking to the guys in the days of Noah, and it describes it as they were eating and drinking and blah, 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 planting and harvesting, whatever. They're just going about their life like nothing's different and no judgment's coming, nothing's happening. And their faith isn't looking forward, they're just living in the circumstances. And so when Lot, remember, going back to Genesis, Lot is rescued, his daughters and his wife and him, they're rescued and taken outside the city gates, and then they're told by these angels, don't look back, lest this happen. And Lot's wife looks back, not in faith, but in to the longings of her heart, the contentment of her life, and she's not looking forward in faith to where the Lord is leading them to, which is a much greater place. She's looking at what it is. And so when it says, remember Lot's wife, it's the challenge of don't look back. Faith looks forward. It acts forward. Faith is not in what you see. That Bible talks about that all the time. And it's fixing your eyes on what's ahead in the future. And Lot's wife did not fix her eyes ahead. She looked back. And that's a challenging passage to not just get distracted. Here you can understand, because Noah's preaching 120 years and nothing's changing. And no, it's never rained, and he's telling them rain's going to come. And so for 119 years, everybody's just doing what they always do.
Yeah.
When do you stop doing what you stop going, I'm going to be mindful about what I need to be instead of what I'm doing right now, and looking forward in faith. And so it's a great passage. Yeah. I have to go back and listen. Herschel's preaching that now.
Well, thanks for the word on that, and thanks for your willingness to come out tonight and answer all these questions.
Thanks.
And
you have to.
Yes, strong
is
sock game. Thanks for buying it. We're out of time.
Oh, okay. Let me
we
just
got a
tell
couple
you.
gifts.
No, I don't want the gifts. I don't want them.
You need
You
them.
keep your junk. You keep your junk, because it's
Some of my
stuff.
coworkers raided my boss's office to give some gifts.
I guarantee
Reese's
you,
fountain pen.
there are things that Herschel had a hard time parting with that needed to be parted with a long time ago. And so the fact that they showed up at you, that is a gift to me.
Right.
So.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for all your questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, but really enjoyed our conversation
Thanks,
with Miss
Scott. You're good.
Tanya. And I want to remind you, if you have a graduate in your family, to sign up for Graduate Recognition Sunday, which is next week. Next Wednesday night, we will have a conversation with Dr. York about what it's going to look like for us to regather as we have received word that we'll be able to begin to come back together. It'll be different, but we'll begin to worship together here at the building. So next Wednesday night, be sure to tune in at 6:30. We'll have a conversation on what steps we're taking, and you'll hear lots of things from Dr. York and some of our other staff. And then if you enjoyed your time with Tanya, which I'm sure you did, in just a couple weeks on Thursday nights, we will shift from pastor chat to pastor wives chat.
I'm excited.
Where Tanya will spend lots of time with our pastors' spouses, and that will be a fun time and conversation, lively one for sure. In just a few minutes, over at the Buck Run Students Facebook page, Adrian and Will be leading online student worship tonight. You have nothing else to do. I encourage you to be fed well tonight and to worship with us over there. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.